Welcome back, Warrior Fam.
Yay!
We're so excited to be with you again this week.
Yes.
We are talking about I got a pocket full of sunshine. Just
and
kidding.
The news is the blues.
I didn't plan to sing that, but for some reason we talked about pockets of joy. And so that's going to be our part of our topic and the blues of the news.
Yep.
Because we thought we would chat for an episode about how deeply dark and disturbing and depressing our world is.
Yes.
And how receiving those messages in news form, in so many different news formats, is sometimes so overwhelming and exhausting and just the freaking worst.
Yes. Greatly impacts mental health, well-being, levels of overwhelm and anxiety.
Sensory overload.
Yes. Yep.
It's so draining.
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, that'll be just nothing but a terrible, depressing episode. So how can we lighten and brighten it up?
Yeah.
And so with that, we thought we'd share also about how we're able to find the good in our news content.
Yes. The pockets of joy in the darkness of news.
Yes. We live in an oversaturated media environment. Right. So let's start with talking about the ways that we consume our news.
Yeah. Okay. Currently, my iPhone has this amazing thing where I can get my news if I click on Facebook, and I can get news if I click on Instagram, and I can get news if I click on the news app, or I can go straight to Google and get some Google news. But primarily I get my news from Facebook. Now it's the New York Times articles on Facebook. I am not getting my
from
check.
Uncle Ned.
Yeah. Facebook, Instagram, when I see stuff that comes up, and then I'll look for it. And then also my news app, my Apple News app. What about you?
Yeah, well, it's so funny because when you were running through all the things, it was sometimes my phone just tells me when it's time for me to read news, right? Apple News will just show up for me as a notification every morning. Yikes. I don't always open it.
Yeah.
Typically I try not to open it, especially first thing in the morning when I just hit, stop on my alarm.
Yeah.
But it is there in your face.
Right. The moment you wake up in the morning, right? What do we all do? We use our phone for everything. Turning off the alarm. It's oh,
boom.
Excellent. There's been another mass shooting. Oh, good. More rights are being taken away. Yippee. There's a war. Climate change, we don't even talk about that one, but sometimes we can find a little bit in the news, or we got monkeypox now. Let's you're right.
That's
voting
the thing.
It's no matter what, if your phone's always with you, at some point, you're just going to get smacked in the face with information.
Yeah. And there's just no time to consume it all. Even if I wanted to consume it all, which I don't, there's no time. You were just we don't even talk about climate change anymore. It's because we can't, our brains cannot handle the pile up of one thing over another,
right?
Of any amount of information to start out with. Now make all that information terrible and scary and detrimental
and hopeless. Yeah.
And good luck functioning with your family and your friends and your work life.
Right. Yeah. It's an overwhelming onslaught of information. And even if it's oh, I'm just going to check my Instagram for a second. Right.
Good luck with that.
And then it's breaking news, terrible thing. And then it's okay, wait, now I need to know a little bit more information about this. Is this misinformation? Is this true? Is this and then it's
right. Who to trust?
Yes. Right.
Oh my gosh. It's so exhaustive. It's so and because it's 24 hours.
Yeah.
The phone is always with us. And so that there's always an opportunity to get the news from something on the phone or someone on the phone.
Right.
But even if you're just watching TV or even on apps now, a lot more apps are airing commercials and things like that. A lot of those commercials are political or they're about something extremely specific that's having a great impact on whole groups of people in our society.
Right.
Yeah. So like you would ask me how I consume my news. I'm not on Facebook, but it's on Instagram, through
Yeah.
Apple News, through my subscriptions to, New York Times and NPR and things like
Yeah.
that. But mostly my news consumption is through podcasts, actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And when we talk more
Okay.
about this, like that's become the only way I insist upon receiving my news.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a big part of
Wow.
my self-care is
Yeah.
realizing the discomfort behind all the other methods of reading. I mean, and reading's
Right.
okay too, especially if it's
Right.
something very specific and if it's breaking and there's no podcast about it yet. Right. Then I'll
Right.
read. So like reading is supportive, listening to podcasts feels supportive if I
Yeah.
have to consume news. And obviously, like I want to be up on what's going on in our world.
Yes.
It's not like
Right.
don't want to be informed, right? So it's like
Right.
trying to decipher how often do I consume the news?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just what kinds of news, but how often am I going to allow myself, like, okay, I really want to read that article. I'm going to give myself 10 minutes with it. And then that's it. Phone goes away, computer goes away, wherever source I'm looking at
Right.
goes away for however long I need after that. I'm going to need a break after
right.
that.
Right. I mean, that's kind of like the thing that I have a hard time with is like when something like when that, when that draft was leaked by the Supreme Court, like I could not set boundaries on my phone. I needed to read everything possible from multiple different news sources, right? Like
the latest update,
New York Times, but let me check what the Hill's saying, right? Like, I'm like, okay, like let me try to be as informed as possible, but I will never listen to Fox News.
No, it's not real news.
It's not
propaganda.
News.
It's full on propaganda.
Yeah. But I try to be, okay, what's the Wall Street Journal? What's the Washington Post? I try to like find NPR.
So you're okay with maybe consuming news that isn't necessarily maybe in line with your values generally, but not via certain networks or not via certain channels.
Yes.
So not just like you mentioned Fox News, so we'll stick with that. So not just the fact that it's on TV and it's Fox News, but like you're willing to maybe look outside of your box or echo chamber in terms of reading, because that's how I am too. Like I can't consume Fox News or OAN or any of the things that don't align with my belief system and values, but I might be more willing to read something from opposite perspectives from different publications that are in the written form, because that feels more palatable to me. Is that kind of what you
totally? And like, I don't ever get any of my news from TV ever, with the exception of John Oliver and Trevor Noah. Right. Like, and Jon Stewart back in the day. Like,
I'm a Bill Maher. We're big Bill Maher fans.
Bill Maher, Jimmy Kimmel, like whatever it is, like that is the only TV news that I will consume. And even with that, I want to, double check stuff. So it's more, I watch it with a lens of lightness or, right. I mean, I feel like John Oliver tells the truth. Right. But also, I know
he's funny.
It was more comedy, right?
Right.
It's comedic news. But yeah, when it comes to reading, I really try to see multiple perspectives within the realm of like, I trust you, right?
True.
Like I
respect.
Like Wall Street Journal, The Hill don't always side with my values and my beliefs, but they're also not like fear mongering, trying to attack someone's amygdala to make them afraid and hate people. Right. Sure. They're just doing a different 100%. Perspective. Yeah. And then New York Times, Washington Post, NPR, like Reuters, right. Like, and then, so I try to find that, but then it's all really time consuming because if I'm trying to have like a, not my echo chamber and have a fair and balanced understanding of even what's happening in the news. Right. Then I'm like, okay, now I have to read this. Now I have to read this because I have to be informed, but I also can't just be citing talking points from one political party, and it's like,
it's manipulative though.
Yeah.
I feel like so much of the at least the TV news cycle, media cycle is so manipulative. It's like, is everything breaking news? It's like immediate drama, right?
I mean, and breaking news about like cures for cancer. Where the hell's that breaking news, right?
It'll never come because there's no money in anything but research.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
But that's like, I mean, give us some balanced stuff, right? TV news, when you're saying things are breaking, give us some good shit too. breaking
and local
news. Yeah.
Local news is the most depressing. Like world news is hard enough. Domestic news is hard enough, but sometimes local news is even scarier because it's like this crap is happening right outside our doors.
Yikes.
Like
I only get my
away.
like local news from next door and I'm like, ugh.
And that's even pretty bad, right? I'm sure sometimes you're like, oh, wait, where's that person live? How far away from my
exactly.
Yeah, that sounds even more stressful than like I'm on Long Island. So like checking in with News 12 or like even just like traffic and weather. I'm like, okay, this is the kind of breaking news I can handle. What's going on the 495 right now?
Yes.
Because I'm about to go drive. Like, that's cool. I'm good with that kind of breaking news.
Breaking news. There's no traffic.
Like, let's go.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And with local news and with all news, like, you notice that like at the very end, maybe if they have a little extra time, last 30 seconds to 2 minutes, they have like the human interest story or like the good news with air quotes. Right. And they save it for the very end after all the murder and the, stealing and the people doing, things that are harmful, all the terrible things. And then like, here's a little bit of sunshine for you. So you don't like,
here's a squirrel that brought someone an apple. And it's like, oh, yay. There's
like,
good
yay,
squirrels in the world.
Now. Everything's better now. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, I definitely do not watch local news at all. Like for years and years. Like I think the last time I did it was like at some point in New York City, right? When I lived in New York City. I don't miss any of those little like puff pieces. It's like, all right, if you want to give some lightness, right? Maybe tell people like how they can actively support like stopping climate change or at least slowing the like raising of the temperature, right? Or, like instead of like doing a little puff piece on someone that made like the largest cookie in the county, it's like, all right, if you're passionate about ending gun violence, like here's ways you can get involved. Maybe educate us on how like the little things we can do to get involved so we don't feel so hopeless and helpless reading the news or listening to or watching the news.
Yeah. It's like they give you that little treat at the end just to keep you going.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they'll dangle it in front of you the whole time. They're like, coming up after the next break, we're going to talk about that happy thing or like those positive things. And then you keep waiting and it's the next break and it's the next break. And at the very end, you get that one bit of lightheartedness. And then you're just like, and that's supposed to sustain me. Right. This one little treat you've offered me. Well, like, I appreciate what you're saying. It's like, have the bit of good news be more in line with what humanity really needs, not just like what's good for that one random person or that silly story. And like, look, I love a lot of those random silly stories. Like the biggest cookie in the county, that sounds like something that would really interest me. Actually.
Okay, fair.
But
yes,
and then there's a place for that, right? Yes. And so like but I understand at the end of local news, let's make it a little bit more like in line with what can we all do to serve our greater humanity? Right. But
hey, we don't want you to feel hopeless and helpless after this segment. So here's some
what
people
you can do about
working towards this. You can donate. You can get involved yourself. You can spread awareness this way. You can, it's like,
it's exhausting. It's
exhausting. It's exhausting. And like, when I first started like, thinking about this topic, before we like did the outline and stuff, like for me, this all came from the extremely massive amount of gun violence that is happening in our country right now. And just like literally how exhausting, how just draining and exhausting and depressing and infuriating. And it would just leave me like literally like laying on my floor, not knowing what to do. Because other countries have solved this problem. It is not an unsolvable problem. It's really not that effing complicated. Right. And so for me, like during that time period, it was when I was like, oh my gosh. But even before then, when we talked about like them taking away the right to choose, right? Or when the war in Ukraine just started, right? Like all of that just constantly impacts my well-being, where I'm just like kind of like shut off and like want to like dissociate from the world around me, because it's so exhausting and no one is giving us tools on how to navigate this. And like you said at the beginning, it's like our brains aren't programmed, aren't ready, aren't available to know this much bad stuff all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it's just so much constant overwhelming information, and
right.
It's exhausting.
But at the same time too, like our brains, like I was saying, like we were saying, can't hold that much information.
Right.
Yet when we do receive the information, our minds automatically cling on to the negative.
Yes.
Right. Over any of the positive anyway. So even if 50% of the stories were about ways to work on a problem or help find solutions or ways to keep yourself educated and of service to others, right? Or really good feel good puff pieces even too, our minds are still going to attach to the mass shootings, the war, right? All the terrible things because of like negativity bias. And
yes. Yeah.
You know, all right. I mean, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's like, oh, you're just being negative or you're just so upbeat and positive. It's like, no, kind of our brains tell us that shit's more important.
Yeah. It's
right?
going to keep
we have
us
to
safe.
actively work against it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, our brains don't really understand about mass shootings, but we're going to focus on that because that's information for us to keep ourselves maybe safe. Right.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Like just this week, I mean, since now we're sort of going off onto talking about how we came up or how you had decided what you had went through thinking about this was about the recent mass shootings this whole year. And I mean, forever really, but these past few months, especially like just this week, like there's brand new protocols at one of the sites where I'm teaching classes and this isn't a school either, but it's just like how it's impacting all businesses, all public spaces are now thinking that much harder about what to do to keep themselves and their clients and their students and their everyone that comes through their doors safer.
Since their country won't.
Right. Changing the laws clearly won't do that. So small businesses better do it.
Right. Right.
Anyway, that's a separate tangent. We need to bring it back here. All right. So let's think a little bit about like, what do you do to find those pockets of joy? Is there like things that you're actively doing to find them? How do they show up in your feeds? Or, you know, like thinking about it from the perspective of agency, what we do have the control over. What are some of the things that you do? Yeah.
Some are intentional or conscious, and some of them are not intentional or unconscious. Sometimes when I'm scrolling through the gram, you know, I intentionally follow people that are able to see humor in the situations. Right. And I don't think that they're like taking away from the actual situation. Like there's this one guy that draws a cartoon every single day based on like something that's come from the news. Right. And the cartoons are like really impressive. And then usually, you know, he's making fun of some idiot in Congress. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it doesn't take away from the horrible things these people are doing, but it's able to lighten it a bit. I like following comedians, and I like following comedians that troll people that are hypocritical. Yeah. And so I watch them like interview people and ask them like the same exact question 2 different ways. And the person like changes their mind. Right. Or not. Right. They don't change their mind. They justify how they have 2 totally different opinions for the same question based
in the same moment,
based on if it impacts them or anybody else.
Right.
Right. And so I do like when that happens. Maybe that means me a mean person or something, but I enjoy watching people be idiots, or being trolled, you know?
Yeah.
So there are like things on my feed that bring me joy. Like, you know, you bring me joy on the feed, like both in the Anxiety Warriors podcast and Calm Cookie. Like I will actively look out for you to be like, all right, what's Margot doing? Because Margot brings me joy. Right. So there's things like that. Sometimes like, I'm like, all right, obviously I need to put the phone down and actively seek joy, like being with my puppies or going for a walk, or if the news is just so heavy, like, let me talk to someone. And then, you know, eventually can we like find some lightness or humor in this, you know? And so, that's really what it is sometimes the pockets of joy just pop up naturally in the sense of like scrolling through Instagram or like sitting outside and seeing a cute bunny run by or whatever. But sometimes I have to like actively be like, okay, I am so overwhelmed and depressed by the news. I need to go do something else to remind me of the good in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, like all of that, just all of that. I mean, yeah, like literally all of it. Like I had mentioned earlier, I like to be intentional about how I consume the news. And so because I find reading and podcast news to be a lot more palatable, I only do that now. For a long time, I was pushing myself, especially when at the height of election, big lie BS and through all of that stuff, I felt like I better be tuned in, plugged into everything. I was watching cable news. I was reading. I was overwhelming myself with all the different news forms. And then I came to the place where it was like, I can't, this isn't sustainable. I'm angry all the time. I'm crying all the time. You know, it was just too much dread. So I found a nice medium with just 15-minute podcasts, you know, and then every day to catch up on like the main points of the day. And then, you know, I have 2 very specific longer podcasts that I listen to during the week as well.
Right.
I love podcasts.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of those for joy. Like I consume a lot of, I won't call it news, but just like information or ideas, or I tune into amazing, wonderful, fulfilling conversations that feels nothing but laughter and joy. And it reminds me of the good in the world. So I very intentionally listen to a lot of awesome podcasts that bring me a lot of light and joy. In addition to all the things you said, you know, curating my social media feed and deciding when it's time for a long ass break or a big boundary. And you mentioned too, which really resonated with me, which is just like walking away and doing something else with your time.
Yeah.
Reading, walking, you know, chasing around the dog, whatever.
Right.
Going for a walk with Adam. Just like sitting on the floor, engaging in my yoga practice, meditation, journaling, like literally anything that isn't newsworthy.
Right.
And and sometimes I'll notice myself start to feel agitated. So I try to practice noticing the agitation with sitting with the phone or sitting with too much news or whatever. And then as soon as I do, like I've mentioned in previous episodes, setting the boundary, setting the alarm on my phone for 5 more minutes, finish what I'm doing, and then be done for any number of time that I need.
Yeah.
And I like to call these acts like charging stations. Just like I'm recharging myself with this reading for half hour. I'm recharging with 20 minutes of yoga. I'm recharging with petting my dog for 5 minutes, you know, like whatever it is, just being really intentional about what I'm doing and for how long has helped a lot. And yeah, I love all funny, if I am on social media or if I am in the media somehow, I like consuming hilarious articles and like Far Side and The Onion and
The Awkward Yeti.
Yes, right. And exactly. Engaging with accounts on social media that bring me joy and lightness. And I unfollowed even things that I listen to and watch when I'm trying to get the news. I unfollowed them on social media.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't need this to show up in my social media in order to learn that it happened.
Right.
I can find that out on my podcast later or tomorrow morning.
Yes.
It's not going to be a problem if I don't hear about it right now. Or sometimes Adam will come home and be like, did you hear about X? And it's really wonderful for me to be like, no, I didn't hear about that.
I know.
And then I'm like really proud of myself. I'm like, I didn't hear about that because I intentionally kept away from that kind of negativity. And then it's not like I'm going to turn my brain off and I'm not going to be attuned to it. It's just, I didn't hear about that because I'm not plugged into the outside noise right now. And that's great.
And I've been peaceful for X amount of hours and like my nervous system has
anxiety free
and calm. Yeah. That's something, you know, that like there's sometimes where like something happens in the news and like I want to text you and I don't. Sometimes I do text you, but there's times where I don't because I don't want you to take on that crap too. Right. It's like sometimes let's let people just be uninformed for X amount
a
of
little
time.
while.
They're going to find out. If they have a phone, they're going to find out. Let's let them have their inner peace before they have another horrible thing like that happen in the news. Yeah.
Totally.
There was this thing when I was in my early 20s, even in my early 20s, I thought the news was the blues, right?
Yeah.
Like I just really did not like how the news always focused on the negative, right? Maybe some of that is all of the journalists all have really strong negativity bias, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe like that's part of the problem too. They need to be educated on their bias.
Or their bosses.
That's right. True. And in my 20s, I remember saying to my dad, because this is like before really iPhones and apps and all of the chaos that is now at our hands, in our reach. I was like to my dad, I was like, I really just want to make a newspaper or a magazine that focuses all on the good stuff that's coming out. Right. And my dad was like, I'm sorry, but no one will ever buy that.
So much honesty.
And now I'm like, well, damn, I wish that I still tried in my
People
20s.
need that. Go do it now.
Well, I don't know. I have other things on my plate now. But because the thing is, like, I do follow like the Good News Network or whatever they're called. Or
Good News Movement.
Yes. Like I follow things that only share good news. And it's not all puff pieces. It's like, I've already referenced this before, but like, there might be a new really good treatment for colon cancer or rectal cancer, right? And like that should be all over the place. Like let's let people know about that. Or, there's actually a sustainable palm oil that we can buy that isn't like ruining, the Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. And let's spread that good news so that people have something they can actually do to help the environment. So yeah. So I think people do want good news because we're so, at this point with our phones, just overwhelmed by all of the bad news.
Totally.
Yeah.
I do want to be reminded that there's good humanity going on though too.
Yes.
Like it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to go back to like the largest cookie in the county just because it made me laugh and it just sounded funny. But like, so not that kind of news, although that's great. That's cool too. But like when you hear about like good Samaritans, right?
Yes.
Just good citizens being kind and loving to other citizens.
Yes.
People showing love, showing up, volunteering, doing what they can, small acts of service, big acts of service, whatever it is, like reminds me, okay, not everything sucks. Not everyone hates everyone.
Right.
Not everyone is going to live the rest of their lives thinking one way. There is room for people to change. There is room for, us to learn and keep evolving and growing.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so seeing those stories always have a nice impact on me too. It's like, okay, if you can even reach one person that, maybe is a white supremacist or, formerly believed one thing and you're able to figure out a way to reach them. Like to me, there's plenty of wonderful documentaries about that kind of thing that I always feel like I love watching because I need to believe that people have the capacity for change.
Right.
Even if it's really hard, even if it's really challenging. And so I love when I see those types of stories too.
Yeah. I don't really celebrities have a ton of resources and a ton of money. And so I'm not really into like celebrity news. Right. But I did see how John Cena. See, this is how much I know celebrity stuff. I know who he is. So a woman was leaving Ukraine with her son who has Down syndrome, and he didn't want to leave, and he didn't, and she was like, "Well, we need to travel because we're going to go see John Cena." And he heard about it, and he met them wherever they were traveling to, and met the son. And like even saying that now, it gives me chills. And awesome. It's like just those. He didn't have to do that. That was like one family in the entire world. He didn't have to travel to a different, and he did. And like, and so it's just like those little moments of like people being good to other people, not because they have to, but because they want to.
Totally. Yeah, that's a perfect example of like celebrities. There are plenty of amazing celebrities that are advocates and activists that are doing the work, that are using their voices and platforms and, wealth for good in the world. So yeah, I don't consume a lot of celebrity news. I don't follow or watch along with like e-news or any of that stuff. It just doesn't speak to me either. So I get it. But at the same time, yeah, it's always lovely to see like, okay, someone's finally using their wealth and power to help other people. That's awesome.
Even one, right? Like
Even
it wasn't
one.
a big
What
mass
a
of
difference.
people. It was one child that he went to support. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. That is beautiful.
What are your hopes for your relationship with the news? Do you have any?
I hope to live in a world where there's no news. I mean, that's like seriously lofty dreams, you know.
What about only good news? Because I mean, again, back to this cancer thing.
Just
like,
no news. I want to live in a world where there's where I'm not being fed I don't have to be fed information about anything because everyone's fine. That's the hope. I know
imagine that people living without news.
Good Lord. Yeah, I mean, I think my hope is that I can keep building up my boundaries, that I can always remember that even though I'm one person, I'm small in terms of the grand scheme of the world. I can make a difference in someone else's life.
Yeah.
And that taking breaks and being intentional and going to my charging stations, whatever that may be in the moment, continues to support and serve me. Because we're not going to live in a non-news cycle. So we got to learn. I got to learn to keep living with it in a way that feels sustainable.
I love the charging. Like, I like thinking images and pictures and visions and stuff. And I just imagine like going to practice my yoga and like, I have like a plug I'm plugging into me to like plug me back or charge me back up or recharge me. Like, I love that. Like,
I didn't create this. This isn't something I made up. I don't remember where I heard it, but when I heard it, I latched to it too. And I was like, I'm going to start looking at things like this.
Yes.
What charges me? What fills me up? Move towards those things. Do those things more often.
Plug into the things that charge you
in
a good way.
What about you?
I mean, I'm still distracted in my mind about all the things that I can plug into, like books, dogs, like, let's see, what are my hopes? I mean, I guess pretty much what you said, right? Is, it would be nice if there was no news ever, right? Now that I know what you meant by that. But of course, these are just hopes, right? So I guess like a more practical hope is really it's really being able to figure out a balance, having really strong boundaries and following through on it. Because the follow through is really hard for me, especially when there is breaking news.
Yes.
That part is really hard because I want to keep consuming, even though it makes me feel absolutely horrible on the inside.
Yeah.
So finding that balance, and I know maybe I think before the 80s, there was this thing where like news was only allowed to report if it was fair and balanced and you had to share more like both sides. So, and then Reagan got rid of that rule.
Shocker.
I know, but maybe like my hope is maybe we can bring that rule back so that at least news stations are required to share balanced news, even if it's negative, at least it's balanced,
right? Two sides of a coin.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's my hope too.
I love that. I like that too. That would definitely improve the way I consume news. For sure.
Yeah. Give multiple perspectives.
Right. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
All right, warriors. So what our hopes for you are today, this week in general, is that you take some time to reflect upon what is your relationship to the news cycle like? What is like doomsday watching or scrolling, if you do that, like we do, feel like to you? How does it manifest itself in your physical and emotional body? What are the kind of things that you notice creep up for you when you are in that doomsday scroll, when you're overwhelmed or inundated with the constant that is breaking news, air quotes, which again, it's so manipulative. And what are your hopes for your relationship to it? Do you have pipe dreams like we do a little bit? All with some grounded, tangible dreams too. And what comes up for you when you reflect upon it? And like, what are some of the active practices that you can employ in your own day to day to find and consume news that brings you joy, that fills you up? What are the pockets of joy that you've been able to find in your practice of consuming news? And if you haven't really found, community or the right stations or the right podcasts or the right social media accounts to follow, like do some research on it, right? Mm-hmm. So talk to your friends and colleagues and family about what they do to help them with their news consumption and finding the joy, those pockets of joy.
Yeah.
Sunshine.
Yes.
Who sings that song? I can't, was it not even a good song, but like it's in my head.
I got it. I know her name.
It's gonna make me crazy.
Yeah, we'll get it.
We'll get it.
Yeah.
When we're done recording, of course.
Yeah.
As soon as
it'll like fall right in our Natasha Bedingfield.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
Okay.
I think you're right. Somebody out there can correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even like know who she is, but sometimes I just like know I know random things like that are connected.
Same thing. I don't know any existing artists today. I'm like past the mid 2000s. I'm like, everything is so disposable. I can't remember that. I might know the song. I may be able to sing all the words, but don't ask me to pinpoint the artist in a crowd or like give me their name. No way.
The name of the song.
You their name.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Like, I don't even know if that's the name of the song. I think it's Pockets Full of Sunshine or Pockets Full of Sunshine.
That
feels right.
Yeah.
All right, warriors. We're going to move on.
Yes.
So Abby, do you have a win of the week?
Win of the week. I do.
Woo.
So it's been getting nicer outside. Warmer. I mean, we did just have a snowstorm like a couple weeks ago, which is crazy because we're recording this in June when I say this. Mm-hmm. So it's getting nicer. And so I've been like, Dan, we need to get out of the house more. Right. Yeah. And so last weekend we saw some friends and hung out on a patio, got some food. It was really nice. But then last weekend we also went to the zoo. And let me tell you, first of all, I was like, I don't know if I like zoos or don't. Like, I couldn't remember if I thought they were horrible or not, but zoos have upgraded. So the zoos that we went to, they were all rescued animals. They even had these really cool looking raccoons that were born with some type of skin thing. They are not, I can't think of the word, but anyway, basically they weren't going to survive in the wild because they were all white. So they couldn't camouflage. But it was like some rare thing that they had. So like the zoo takes them in and they're like, brother and sister, and they have like a whole big area for them. And, they rescued some painted dogs that like one was missing a leg. Like, I love painted dogs. Anyway. So it was nice to see that the zoo has upgraded. And they taught me about this really cool app about palm oil and how palm oil is a really great substitute, like that people are using in everything, but how much it's impacting the environment and taking away habitats for animals, which is why they're getting some of the animals. And so they created an app where you can like scan stuff to see if what you're buying has the sustainable or unsustainable palm oil. So it was a really nice day date with Dan. It was really nice getting out of the house. I got a really cute stuffed animal painted dog because I love painted dogs. I love painted dogs. And it was really nice to see the evolution in zoos because I remembered them being sadder, but it didn't feel so sad going there. And I'm like super empathetic to animals in cages. Like, believe me, I'm not like I put myself in that position. Right. And I like think about how I would feel, but it seems like they're really trying. They're going totally green. Right. Like there was just a lot of good stuff. And so that felt like a win, getting out of the house and enjoying something that I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy or not.
There you go. Wins inside wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you learned some new info, had fun, and got to be outside. That's the biggest thing. I think it's just like leaving the house, going to do something active that's you haven't done in a while and had previously held beliefs about, but we're able to see it differently. And that's cool that they're like more progressive and rescuing more animals.
Yes.
Not breeding them in captivity.
Like they had, there's none of the animals are bred in captivity. They had this like one grizzly bear, and basically the grizzly bear they got when she was just a baby. She's like, I don't know, 18, 19 years old now. And her mother was teaching her to get food from humans. So people came and they put the mother down because I don't know why, because she was a danger to humans. I don't know. But then the baby had nowhere to go. So the zoo took the baby in, right? And there was actually another bear that had a similar story that they took in too. And so it really seems like now they're not.
They put the bear down?
No, not the zoo.
Oh.
The grizzly bear was I think it was in Washington State, the mom and the baby. And the people in Washington State put the mom down because they didn't want her interacting with humans. And they were in the wilds. Yes. But they were going to humans for food.
Okay.
I know. I don't understand that part, but the zoo did not put the mother down. No.
Right. Okay.
They were looking for a home for the baby and the zoo took her.
Got it. Okay. All right.
So they're all coming from places where they need a home.
Mm-hmm. All right. Like it. Good win.
Yes.
Good win.
Yes.
All right, warriors. Well, thank you so much for being with us this week. We love you so, so much. If you'd like to connect with us, jump on over to Instagram. We're at Anxiety Warriors Podcast. If you'd like to shoot us an email, you can do so at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. Shout out your wins of the week. Share topic ideas for us, things you'd love to hear us talk about here on the show. Or if you think you'd be an awesome fit as a guest on our pod, let's connect. Let's get you on the calendar, help you tell your anxiety story here on our platform. We'd love it. And if you can, warriors, take 2 seconds and smash that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you tune in. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Jump on over to our show notes and head on to Threadless, where you can support our show by grabbing some Anxiety Warriors podcast swag. Mm-hmm. That's some awesome merch over there for you to pick up to have fun with. Beach towels and mugs and hoodies and t-shirts and tank tops. I know we're heading into the really warm months here. It's very warm in New York. It's pretty warm in Colorado now, I'm guessing.
Yes. We had high 90s over the weekend.
Wow, that's really hot.
Yeah.
Whew. So maybe some tank tops, warriors.
Yeah, let everyone know that you're a control enthusiast.
Right, exactly. You know? Brand new design. That's right. 70s style font, so fun. We're obsessed with it, but we're obsessed with all the designs, so it's really hard to pick our favorite.
Yes.
Is it your new favorite?
I mean, I love them all for different reasons, but I also love Robe and Tony. And
do you want to have said that?
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Leave it in. All of this stays.
I'm a fan of Robe and Tony.
Anyone listening who listened all the way back to our first episode and have any idea who Robe and Tony are? If you are and you are desperate for a Robe and Tony tee, go ahead and DM us on Instagram, shoot us an email and let us know. And maybe we'll put it up in the Threadless shop.
Yeah.
But only if we hear from you.
Yes.
So
we must know that you want it.
Exactly. But Control Enthusiast is our brand new design and it is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, warriors. Thanks for tuning in. We love you.
Yes. Thank you so much for going on this journey with us. We are so grateful we get to do this with you.
We get to do this. Till next time.